this, I just want to tell you, do not shoot the messenger, okay? Because there's some of these changes, you're not going to like them, but our hands are tied. Because we're getting the money from the state, they are setting the guidelines. So that's why I say go speak to your local congressperson. We just had an election. That's why it's very important that you guys vote in these local elections, because these are the people making decisions about these programs. So if you don't like these guidelines, reach out to your local representative, not me. I have no control over it. So what it is, it's a 20% down payment. One of the changes for round one, we are putting a cap of $150,000. So it's 20% or $150,000, whichever is less. So what that breaks down to, if you're buying a home for $750,000 or less, you'll still get the full 20%. If you're buying a home, the sales price exceeds $750,000, then that's when you'll be capped at the $150,000. Now, whatever down payment you get is going to be what your shared appreciation is going to be. So once you sell the home or refinance for 30 years, your home appreciates, you're going to have to share 20% of that. So if you got 20% for down payment, your shared appreciation is 20%. But say you were capped at the $150,000 and that equals 15% down payment, then your shared appreciation is 15%. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So you have a couple options with this. You can put the full 20% for down payment, and the benefit of that is since it's on a conventional loan, when you put 20% down, it avoids mortgage insurance. So that's why this program is so popular, because that's already saving you several $100s a month of not having to pay that mortgage insurance. So if you put the full 20% for down payment, then you would just come in with your own closing costs or see if you could get help from the seller. But say you did need help towards your closing costs, you can use up to 5% to put towards your closing costs. So your closing costs 5%, you put 5% towards your closing costs, the remaining 15% for down payment. Now in that case, you would have a small mortgage insurance payment because you're only putting 15% down, but it does go by your credit score, how much you're putting down. So since you're still putting a huge amount down, your mortgage insurance is going to be very low. Say your closing costs are only 3%. You can put 3% for closing costs, the remaining 17% for down payment. So you can split this 20% up, but only 5% can go toward closing costs, and then the remaining will go for down payment. So the biggest change is it's not going to be first come, first serve anymore. We can't have it go in 11 days like it did before. And it was really, I joke about it, but it really was sad for some people, because the way our programs work is you have to have an executed purchase contract before the lender can reserve the loan with us. So that means you found a home, you put an offer in, the offer got accepted, you're excited, oh, I found a home, and then the lender went to reserve funds and the funds were gone. And so a lot of people end up not being able to buy the home. So we don't want that to happen again. And like I said, there were some people that found out about it, got started, and then the money was gone. So we want to make sure it's fair across the board for everyone. So the only way we could do that is to do a lottery. So it's going to be a pre-registration lottery. Well, the state keeps telling me to stop calling it a lottery. So it's actually a randomized selection process. So a lottery. But I understand now. A few weeks ago, someone reached out to me and says, how do I enter this lottery to win a free house? And I'm like, okay, I get it now. You're not winning anything for free, okay? These are loans you have to pay back. So the portal's going to open April 3rd, 8 a.m. April 3rd to April 29th, 5 p.m. Don't rush out on April 3rd because it's not first come, first serve. So it doesn't matter between April 3rd and April 29th, you're going to have the same chance. So you have to go to one of our approved lenders and get pre-approved. We have a standard pre-approval letter that each lender's going to fill out. So once they pre-approve you, they're going to fill out the letter. They're going to give you the letter. You, the borrower, has to go into this portal and do the registration. Your lender cannot do it for you. Your realtor cannot do it for you. And you don't want them to do it for you because you are attesting under penalty of perjury that this information is correct. And if they do it for you and they do something wrong, you're going to be the one in trouble. So April 3rd is when it opens. So anytime between April 3rd and April 29th, You're gonna go in, you're gonna do the pre-registration, you're gonna upload their approval letter from the lender. And then about a few weeks after that, so around mid-May, is when we're gonna do the random selection. It's gonna be totally random. So one thing I wanna tell you guys, do not listen to social media right now, okay? Everybody is putting out wrong information. So go to our website. Our website's gonna have all the correct information. So if you see something on social media, don't believe it until you verify it on our website. There's so much wrong information being spread. So if you get selected, you will get issued a voucher. That voucher will now allow you to shop for a home for 90 days. The voucher is good for 90 days. So you have 90 days to find a home, get into contract, and the lender reserve the loan with us. You don't have to close in 90 days, just have to be in contract and the lender reserve the loan with us in that 90 days. We are gonna have a wait list this time, so anyone that doesn't, use the voucher in 90 days, then we'll be able to reach out to someone on the wait list. Everyone will be notified who registers. So one way or the other, you will be notified. So either you got selected, you didn't get selected, or you got selected for the wait list. So it's gonna go by where you live now. So we have divided the state into 9 regions. Because again, in addition to trying to be fair, we want to make sure it is fair across the state. So based on the population of the households for each region, that's how many vouchers we're going to select for that region. So San Diego's its own region, LA County is its own region, Orange County is its own region, and then we have the Central Coast, we have the rural areas, we have the Bay Area, we have the Capital Region in Sacramento. So it's gonna go based on where you live now. So if you live here in San Diego County now, you'll be part of the San Diego County selection. If you get the voucher, you can take that voucher and buy anywhere in the whole state. So you don't have to buy here in San Diego if you don't want to, but the selection does go by where you live now. And then once you get the voucher, you can take that voucher and buy anywhere in the state as long as you meet the income limits for that county. So the income limits are gonna be lower than what I just showed you, and I'll show you that in just a second. Now, all borrowers still have to be a first-time home buyer. So like I mentioned, in 3 years, but one borrower has to be a current California resident, and one borrower has to be what's called first-generation home buyer. So this is the one that a lot of people do not like, and again, go to the state, don't come to us. We tried to change this. Nope, the state, it was a requirement of this program that we change it to first generation. So we were able to relax the definition a little bit. Still not a lot of people, it's gonna disqualify a lot of people. So first generation means you, the borrower, has not owned in the last 7 years, and your parents do not own right now. So if your parents own a home right now, you are disqualified. So, and it's either one of your parents. So it doesn't matter whether your parents are married or divorced or never got married, both of your parents cannot own a house now. If your parents are deceased, your parents did not own when they died. So that's another hard one. So it doesn't matter how long ago it was. Could have been 20 years, but if your parents owned a home when they died, you are not first generation. Unless you are buying with someone who is first generation. So only one borrower has to be first generation. And then the other way that you could be first generation is if you haven't owned in 7 years and you spent any time in the foster care system. So you will have to provide documentation to prove that. Then we'll go off of that. We won't go off of your parents. So we do understand that some people are estranged from their family. You may not know if your parents own a home. So that's why on the affidavit, it does state, to the best of my knowledge, my parents do not own. Just so you know, we are investigating 100%. We have hired a third-party investigation company. They're gonna check all of this. So you need to be truthful. And anyone that we find that committed perjury, which is a felony, we're reporting that to the Department of Justice. So I keep telling home buyers, you're looking to buy a home, not to secure a jail cell, okay? So it's not that serious, especially for a program that you probably are not even gonna get selected for. It's very slim chance. If because we have very limited money. We have enough money to help about 1,800 people, and that's for the whole state. And we expect over 20,000 to apply. So don't let a lender try to tell you to do something wrong, because you're gonna be the one in trouble. And actually, if we find out the lender helped you, we're going after the lender too. So we're serious about this. So you wanna make sure you're being truthful. It's not one of those ones where you just like, let's just submit it and see what happens. No, you are testing under penalty of perjury. So I keep telling everyone, it's not like you're applying for a job. You know, they tell you, you're like, oh, I don't think I meet all the guidelines, but let me just submit it and let them tell me no. That's not one of these times. You don't want to do that, because you are testing that this is correct. And if we find out that you did commit perjury, then you are going to be in trouble. So we are going to be investigating, so make sure you're being truthful. And again, if it does disqualify you, then you have My Home, or you have the San Diego program, or you have other programs out there that you can possibly use. So one borrower has to be first generation. So say husband and wife are buying together. Husband's a first-time home buyer, but his parents own, so he's not first generation. But his wife, she's a first-time home buyer, and her parents do not own, so she's first generation. They would qualify because they're buying together. So again, that means you haven't owned in 7 years. Your parents do not own now. And I'm going to get myself in trouble because I'm telling everybody needs to go grab a dictionary and find out what now means. Present, current. Because everybody's like, oh, my parents don't own in 3 years or 7 years. I've been hearing it and I'm like, no, right now. So it doesn't matter whether your parents owned before. Your parents could have owned and sold last week. Long as they do not own at the time that you are doing the registration and through the whole process, it's just right now that your parents haven't owned. So the income limits are a lot lower. Well, not a lot, but they're a little bit lower. So now San Diego is 185, where it was 231 on My Home. Now the max is 185. So you have to meet the income limit of where the house is located. So just be careful with that, because just because the selection goes by where you live now, the income limit goes by where you're buying. So that is a lot of misinformation that's being spread out there. They're like, oh, you can take your San Diego higher limits and go buy in Riverside. So no, wherever the house is located, you have to meet that. So we're telling our lenders to ask you, what counties are you looking to buy in? So that way they can tell you right up front what counties that your income will qualify in. So if you're like, okay, I'm looking to buy in Riverside County, you may be over the income limits for Riverside County. That way you'll know up front about that. Oh, and there is a second homebuyer education course that you do need to take. You need to take the regular one that I mentioned on My Home, and then there's a specialized one that goes over the shared appreciation. That one is free. It's about an hour. It's on our website. If you think you're going to do Dream for All, we recommend that you do that up front, because we want to make sure you do understand how the shared appreciation works. Because of course, when you're getting a home, you're all excited, you don't really care where the money's coming from until it's time to pay it back. Then all of a sudden, everyone has amnesia. So we want to make sure, that's why we tell you up front all of our guidelines, because we don't want you to be surprised at the end, like, oh, my loan officer didn't tell me I had to pay this back. They told me it was a grant. So no, you do. My Home you have to pay back. This you have to pay back, plus share some of your appreciation. So I know these numbers may not work for San Diego, so just bear with me. I like easy math. So just say you're buying a home for $500,000. So 20% of that is $100,000. That means we're going to give you, or we're going to lend you $100,000 for your down payment. So now your loan amount's only going to be $400,000. So again, that's the benefit of this program. You're getting a huge down payment, so that's going to lower your what your payment is. So say in 5 years you decide you want to sell the property, and say now your property is worth $640,000. So that means your home appreciated $140,000 in that 5 years. You would just have to share 20% of that. So in that case, you would share $28,000, and then you would keep the other $112,000. Now, over those 5 years, we estimated that you paid down your mortgage $30,000. So when you bought the home, your loan amount was 400,000. Now when you're selling, it's 370,000. So since you're selling the home for 640, you're paying back, you have to pay back the 100,000 down payment that you got plus the shared depreciation. So that's a total of 128,000 that you're paying back, but you're keeping 142 of your equity. So it's not like it's taking all of your equity, but you are having to pay back that down payment loan plus the shared depreciation. Now, over the years, over those 5 years, you probably saved more than that 28,000 on your payment, because we were seeing people save $500, $600, even $900 a month on their mortgage payment. So it is something that you do have to think about, because that is the benefit of owning a home, is building that equity. So you're still getting to keep a good amount of your equity, but you are having to share some of that appreciation. Now, that's all the good stuff. Like I told you, we're going to tell you up front, we're never going to hide anything from you. So I want to talk about the negative. So say in that 5 years, you go to sell and the values are down. Now, your home didn't appreciate, so there's nothing to share, but you always have to pay back that 20% loan. So this is why we're saying this is a program meant for someone who is buying a home that they can stay in for a while. So that way they can ride out the market cycles. So I always say real estate's like a roller coaster. It goes up and down, up and down. So we all know what happened in 2008. Well, guess what? Those people that could have, if they would have been able to hold on to their homes, the market recovered in 6 years. But back then, people had adjustable rates. That was a whole different perfect storm. So our rates are fixed, so your payment's going to stay the same. So no matter what the market does, your payment stays the same. But all we're saying is in that 5 years, if you wanted to sell and the values are down, could you stay in that home a little bit longer until the market goes back up, and then that way you're not losing any money. Now there is a max that you will ever have to pay, and it's 2.5 times the original loan amount. So the scenario I gave, you got 100,000, 2.5 times that is 250,000. That will be the max you ever have to share in your appreciation, no matter how high your home appreciates. And then plus paying back the $100,000 loan, so 350,000 is the max. You will know this up front. You're going to sign a set of disclosures, and it's going to tell you for your loan what the max you will ever have to share. So say you stay in the home for 30 years, and now that home is worth $2 million. Your home appreciated $1.5 million. We're not going to take 20% of that. So that's not why we're saying stay in the house for a while, to get more money back. So you do get there is a max. So you'll know up front what the max is you will ever have to share. Now, this chart here, and this is my last slide and I'll be done. This is based on if the home appreciates 4% every year. So it varies. It could go down, it could go up, but average is about 4%. So this gray portion on the bottom represents your first mortgage balance, so how much you owe on your house. The blue portion represents your equity. The orange portion represents the Dream for All fund that you're paying back. So you can see the longer you stay in the home, your balance goes down, your equity goes up. You're keeping more of your equity than you are paying back to Dream for All, because you're going to eventually hit that cap, and even if your home keeps appreciating, there's still that max you will ever have to pay. But if you buy the home and in a couple years you decide to sell, you can see you're paying back more of the Dream for All than you are keeping your equity. So that's why we're saying this is meant for someone who's going to buy a home that they're going to stay in for a while. So that way you keep more of your equity than you are paying back. Now I know, especially if this is your first home, it's probably not going to be your forever home. If you do find your forever home on your first time, congratulations, that's a good thing to do. Usually it takes at least a few homes before you find your forever home. So I'm not saying this needs to be a house that you're going to stay in for the rest of your life. All I'm saying, this just needs to be a house that could you stay in a little bit longer than even what you expected. I always give, and this will be my last time, and then I'll let Carrie speak. But I always give my personal example. The home I'm in now, I said when I bought it, I'm only going to be in here 5 years. Because my daughter is going to be going to high school. I need to be in a certain school district. It was perfect location. It was at the back of the high school. And I told her I better not get one phone call saying you're late for school, because there's no excuse. You're just right there. And then she played sports, so she could just walk. So it was perfect. But I said, after she graduates high school, there's nothing keeping me here. So I can move anywhere now. Well, 15 years later, I'm still there. Because after high school, she went to college and I had to pay for college. That's the other benefit of owning a home. I was able to use some of my equity to pay for a good portion of her college. So, but after, I had to pay for college, I'm like, okay, I'm not moving anywhere. So now I'm just there and I'm just making the upgrades. Still wasn't my forever home, but I'm trying to make it into my forever home because I think Dream Frog is going to make me retire soon. So I need to stay where I am, where I have a low payment. So I think I'm just going to stay there. But I'm not saying do what stay there 15 years. All I'm saying, is it a house? Could you stay a little bit longer just until the market recovers? And then that way you can go ahead and sell at that time or refinance and not have to lose any money. And we do allow you to refinance once without having to pay it back. So there are certain requirements to that. But if you meet the requirement and say the rates drop and you want to refinance, we'll let you do that one time. After that, it's due and payable, just like my home. When you sell or if you refinance again or in 30 years, it will be due and payable. So again, you'll work with Stephanie and determine which program is going to work best for you. I actually think my home is a better program. Even though it gives less money, it's less you have to pay back. And there's no shared depreciation on my home, and it has higher income limits, and there's no lottery, and there's no first generation requirement either, just a regular first time home buyer. But again, some people need the 20% to be able to buy a home with the way these sales prices are. But just a couple options for you guys. Any questions before I sit down? Yes.